Hi there and welcome back to my channel. This is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer. This video is all about October, all the books I read during the month of October, from the first book to the last book. Just like monthly reviews in the past, I'll talk about each book in order and give just a brief rundown of what I thought about that book. I'm not going into great detail because I have detailed versions of book reviews on my channel for almost every book I read anyway. And they'll appear at some stage on my channel. So if you find any books in this video that pique your interest, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on those longer version videos when they're released. Just before we jump into the books for October, just a brief update of a couple of things going on my channel. So, at the start of this year, I was handed a list of 12 books. 12 books not chosen by me to read for this year. I've still got 4 to read from that list, so I'm cramming those 4 into November and December of this year. And I'll release a book review on each of those books on my channel, and then a rundown, a summary of all 12 books as well. I don't know if that summary will have like a least favorite to most favorite, I'm not sure yet, but look out for those videos on my channel. Also, and I don't usually do this type of thing, but I decided to look at some lists on Goodreads. So Goodreads had an article about Goodreads' top 48 mysteries and thrillers for the last 3 years, I think it was. And there were 48 books in that list. And when I was going through that list, I realized I'd read about half of them anyway. So I thought, why not read them all and see what I think? Do I agree with Goodreads readers out there about what makes a good thriller or mystery? And I'm going through that list book by book, and I think I have about 10 to go on that list. I'm hoping to read all those books by the end of this year, have a book review up for them all, and then have a summary video on all 48 books as well, and maybe rank them from my least favorite to my most favorite books from that list. I think it's an interesting experiment to see, are the majority of readers out there the same as me or different in what they look for in a good book. So anyway, let's get back to the list of October and let's get stuck into the first book now. The first book I read was Station 11, written by Emily St. John Mandel. Now, I really enjoyed this book. It is a quiet book, so if you're after books that have big explosions or high-octane scenes or really thrilling moments, like gripping, thrilling, huge moments to throw the reader into it or veer off on a different tangent, you won't get that in this book. There are things in there similar to that, so the book's not boring, it's just quiet. And there are kind of gentle nudges about certain things that happen in the book. So I like this book a lot. It is dystopian. So essentially it's about this flu that wipes out, I'm not sure what percentage of the world's population, but it wipes out a huge percentage. And then technology just, breaks down as well. So what's left are people who have no technology, and so they're learning to survive again without tech. That's kind of the setup in this world. And the present day version of this book, I think is set, I think it's like 10 or 15 years after that event happens. So we have a switch between past and present in this book. We have different POVs in both past and present. What I like about this book is the themes. So one of the themes is art, the longevity of art. And I think also tied into that is just this idea about dating things. So I know readers out there, and sometimes I'm guilty of this as well. You read a book and you think, oh, that idea is dated. That's a bit dated because we're not like that now, or we have different tech now. And you forget that a book is written in a certain point in time. And if it's written in that present day, in that point in time, things will date. So you have to remember to put yourself in kind of the shoes of that time period when you read a book like that. And I think this book has that theme in it. It talks about this art surviving past decades and even centuries and even disasters, and how people can take that art and just continue it, maybe make it something new as well. But it's not about dating art, not about throwing things out that are old. It's about embracing them because they're good. So I like that theme in this book. This book is also about just the capability of humans to survive. Humans are determined to survive in difficult circumstances, and I like that in this book a lot. It has survival. It has these people who go to great lengths just to get through difficult times to reach a certain moment where they're comfortable, where they're happy again. It's also about grieving for the past, whether it's grieving for different people you've lost in the past, or just things you're comfortable with in the past as well. So that is mentioned in this book as well. There are also a big storyline about religion, about belief, all these different things going on in this book. So I like the complexity, I like the layers, I like the way it's written. The writing style is very compelling. Even though it's a quiet book, it is quite compelling. It's definitely haunting, and it's quite tense. So for a quiet book, I think it's very tense. I really enjoyed this, and I do want to read more by this author. I then read The Girl on the Train, and I read this because of all the hype. For many years, this book has been hyped to the nth degree. Now, what did I think? Well, basically, I don't think this book deserves the hype at all. I think many times marketing and hype make a good book. I think that seems to do that sometimes, in my view anyway. So in this book, we have three POVs, three main POVs, and each of them, they're all female characters, but each of them, they're misleading as well. They're unreliable. But I don't like characters that are unreliable just for the sake of it. Characters should be something else. They should be more developed as well. There should be a nuance. There should be other things about them, not just this one unlikable thing that makes them one-dimensional. And I think each of these three characters suffers from that in this book. And that's one of my big bugbears in this book. And also, their narrative point of view, their voices, all sound too similar. So when you're reading this, if you didn't see someone's name, you'd just be confused, I think, because you'd wonder, who is it? Who are we talking about now? Because all their voices sound the same. And when a book is meant to be creating psychological tension in the story, tension based on characters, about what they're doing, suspense and all that sort of thing, based around these characters, because this book is very character driven. If you have point of views that all feel the same in the story, that tension is just diminished, because what is it building up? Are we seeing something in the book unique to one character or all characters? That goes through my mind as well when I read this book. So a lot of things in this book I really didn't like. The writing style, I think, is quite flat. It's going for a slow burn feel, I think, in this story, but without tension, without build up, without holding that tension and build up. When you get little bits here and there, it falls flat to me. And then towards the end, this is a book that relies on big reveals and twists at the end to carry the whole story. And I don't like that either. It's not fair to the reader. Readers deserve more, I think, than writers who just shove all these twists and reveals to the end and say, here you go, I've written a good book because I've thrown in this twist that may not relate to anything for the rest of the story, but a twist is there and it's big, it's shocking, it's off the rails, and there you go. It's gift wrap for you, enjoy. So I feel like some authors do that in their stories. I'm not saying the books are bad because of it, because there are some good things in this story. I'm just saying that I prefer books that have twists and turns and certain reveals and things going on when they're peppered all through the story, not towards the end. For me, that doesn't make a good book. It's like if you're watching a movie, if you're watching a thriller or something and nothing happens except towards the end. Are you going to watch the whole movie? Murder Road, written by Simone St. James. Well, this is a book that was trying to be many things. So we have a murder mystery, we have paranormal elements, we have a bit of a thriller and suspense going on as well. Trying to be many things, but not committing to one of those things. So it feels a bit bland by the end. It's like if you see a piece of chocolate cake somewhere and you think, oh, that looks good, looks rich and dense and delicious. So you get a piece and you take a piece and bite it and you think, well, no, it's bland, it's got no taste. That's what it's like in this story. There are some good elements in this story, some good scenes, but a lot of it is just too cliche, too stereotypical, and not a great build-up of tension in this story, because certain moments, especially certain paranormal moments, because I knew it was a paranormal mystery going into it, but some of those moments were just too bland. They're not detailed enough. There's nothing there to grip me and chill me in those moments. I think if you're going to make a paranormal story, then make those moments more chilling, more gripping, more detailed. Give the reader something to just shiver, put shivers up their spine or something, because you need that in books like this. There are some good things about it though. So some parts of the mystery were good. Some characters were good. The setting's good. It's a small town setting, quite isolated small town. And I do like that in settings. I think that was written quite well. But I just think that this felt like the author wasn't committing to anything. We've got different genres, it's a blended genre story, but just make those stronger. Make one stronger if you're going to make anything stronger, but just make something in there stronger to really grip the reader into the story. Cycle of the Werewolf, written by Stephen King. Well, if you're a completionist, if you need to read everything that Stephen King writes, then read this. If you don't need to read everything he writes, then give this a miss, unless you want to read a werewolf tale. But as werewolf tales go, it's quite ordinary, quite bland. So essentially it's a novella, so it's quite short. What we have in this book is 12 chapters, and each chapter is named after a month of the year. And in each chapter, we have an attack on a person or livestock. And the setting for this novella is a small rural town. And I like small town settings a lot. And I thought this would be great because of that. But it really isn't, because the chapters don't feel connected. Some of them do, so not all are separate, so maybe 2 or 3 chapters do feel connected by the end, but the rest of them don't. It feels like almost 9 or 10 or even 12 short stories in one book, and one very short book. I like some things in this book though. So we have the underdog character, we have the reluctant hero, and I like that. I like that trope in stories. I support the underdog, I support that type of hero in books. It really drags me into books. I did like some of the horror elements, but I just didn't like the disjointed feel with all the chapters. There needs to be an overall story for me, even in a novella, I want an overall story. But this just felt like too many short stories in one book, and each short story just really wasn't doing it for me. Soulmate, written by Sally Hepworth. Now, this book isn't all bad. There are good things in here. We have one character who falls or is pushed off a cliff, and you're wondering all through the story, was she pushed or did she fall? So that's interesting in this book. There's one big thing in this book I don't like. So we have one character, not protagonist, but a main character, and this character suffers from mental illness. And the way it's used in this book I think is just wrong. So we have a character with mental illness, and you can see in the book, other characters can see in the book as well, just this character doing things, changing behaviours, changing actions, and it gets worse and worse. And they just turn a blind eye, like ignore it, and just wait and wait and wait until something drastic happens. Then they kind of step in and blame that character for the things he does. And in my view, that's just wrong. So we have a character suffering from mental illness who has a support structure that's watching and ignoring, and has the means, they all have the means to get help for this person, and they don't, until it's basically too late. So in my view, that's wrong in a book like this. In modern day books, why are we doing that in modern day books? That's my question. I can understand if this character was written to have no support structure, had no means to get help, didn't know how to get help, just was desperate and couldn't see a way to get help. That's understandable. But if a character can get help, has the means, has support structure, that's not understandable in modern books. But it's not all bad. So like I said, we have that mystery about a woman. Was she pushed or did she fall off this cliff? That's central to the whole story. That's done well. We have great misdirection and doubt and red herrings. We have great twists and turns in the story as well. But that one big thing, that thing about this character with mental illness, I think that casts a stain across this whole story. Lies He Told Me, written by James Patterson and David Ellis. Now, David Ellis is my favourite co-author with James Patterson, and David Ellis is a great author in his own right. And both of them together usually produce a great story, and this book is very good. So essentially it's a domestic style thriller, and we have that trope of a woman, a wife, and she suddenly learns her husband may not be who he says he is. He's holding secrets, and are those secrets dangerous or not? So it's one of those tropish type stories in that domestic style thriller type story. So I enjoy that in this book. I think it's done well. And for a book like a typical Patterson book, we have short chapters that are very short and sharp, no filler. But in a book like this, we have great character depth. And I think that's quite strange because you don't really get great character depth in other books sometimes where we have short, sharp chapters and no filler. But in this book, we do. I don't know how the authors did it, but they did it well. So we have great depth in the main characters, and I enjoy that in this book because we get right into their heads, and it drags me into the story more. It has great twists and turns, has great misdirection as well, some great thrilling moments, and I enjoyed this a lot, and I'd love this to be a sequel. I don't know if it will be a sequel because towards the end you think, well, it really can't be, but I'm hoping they could try to drag something out and make it a sequel because I think there's certain characters in this book that are just wonderful. Apples Never Fall, written by Liane Moriarty, is the first book I've read by this author. This book is a family style drama, I think, quite a dark drama as well. There's a mystery in there, but I think the mystery is minor to the whole story. So a very minor mystery. Think of it like a sandwich with a very thin layer, a very thin filling. That's how I think about this book. But anyway, it's written quite well. It's quite clever. There are two mysteries in this book. So we have a mystery about this mother of a family. So in this book we have a mother and father and their 4 adult children. And the 2 parents retire. And when they're retired, they can't work out what to do with themselves. And the mother just goes missing one day. Nobody knows where she went. And suspicion falls on her husband. And as it would in real life anyway, usually police kind of hone in to see is it somebody, the husband or wife or whatever, that was responsible for this person missing. That happens in real life, so it made sense in this book. So suspicion falls on the husband, and the 4 children are kind of divided about whether they believe the husband or not. That's one mystery, what happened to their mother. The second mystery is about this stranger who turns up to the kids' parents' door one night. They're home one night, knock on the door, it's a stranger. This tale about having a fight with her boyfriend, nowhere to go. They let her in and they let her stay. They let her stay for weeks. And the kids are perplexed. Why is this stranger staying at their parents' house? Why are they feeding her, clothing her, even talking about buying her a car? So all that plays out in this story as well. Who is this strange woman? Because one day these certain events happen and she vanishes as well. The thing about this book though is family drama in this story is driven by character issues. And every main character in this book has multiple issues. And I think it's too many. It's overdone. We have too many issues bouncing around in this story. So it's very hard to kind of hone into those issues because there's so many of them. The letdown in this story, I think, because it ripped me out of the book sometimes when you have so many issues swirling around and every character has so many of them. It's overdone, too many. I think it spoils the book somewhat. I then read What Lies in the Woods, written by Kate Alice Marshall. I enjoyed this overall. It's quite a dark mystery, very dark. It has a trope that I'm getting quite tired of now, but I'm trying to not let that colour my view of this book. So the trope is about the protagonist who returns home because of this cold case or some sort of mystery, and then there's a podcaster character in the book as well. This podcaster character wants to talk to a protagonist, maybe even suspects protagonist of being guilty of a crime. Then for some reason, they start to fall in love, almost insta-love. That happens in the story. Happens in this book. It's happened in past books I've read. Very tropish now, I think. I don't think it makes sense. I mean, picture yourself in the main character's shoes. So you're going home or you're living in this town and people suspect you're guilty of a crime. Could be a cold case, could be a current crime, whatever. Somebody waltzes to town, they're from a podcast or they own the podcast themselves and they want to do a story on this crime and they want to talk to you. And even cast you possibly in negative light, thinking you're guilty. Would you talk to them in the first place? Or would you fall in love with them? I mean, it doesn't make sense. I don't know why that happens in books like this, and it's very quick, it's very insta-love. That's even worse. Anyway, put that aside. I want to put that trope aside and not let it colour my view of this story too much, even though I think that trope's quite ridiculous. The rest of the book is okay. It's got a lot of twists and turns, misdirection. It's quite dark and chilling. The setting is well done, a small town setting which I love. And I do love kind of cold case mysteries as well, which this book is. So I like all those things in a story. But the one thing about this is most characters the protagonist deals with in this book, they're a bit shady, a bit dodgy. I wonder about that. I mean, does a character only know shady and dodgy people? Where's the balance in a book like this? I think this book lacked a bit of balance in the characters. Every character seemed to have secrets, was shady and dodgy, even dangerous. It seemed odd to have that in this book. Season of the Witch, written by Sarah Rees Brennan. This is book 1, based on the TV show on Netflix called The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I like this book a lot. I do like books based on TV shows or comic book characters or movies, whatever. I like kind of those kind of franchise books. Not sure why. I just think books can have an opportunity to open up certain characters that you don't get opening up in those TV shows. You know, different aspects to them, different storylines. And this book does that. What I like about this book is that all the characters just feel like the characters from that TV show. They're spot on. Everything about them. Then we have a couple of characters that are explored in more detail, different aspects to them, and I like that as well. So combine those things and combine the fact this is still quite a chilling horror. It is YA, definitely has a YA feel. And what I like about this book as well, it explores Sabrina's choice. Because she is half witch and half mortal, and she's reaching her 16th birthday. She has to choose. Does she want to sign her name in the Book of the Beast and go to the Academy of Unseen Arts? Or does she want to turn her back on everything to do with being a witch and just be immortal? Because she loves her human life as well, and she has friends and a boyfriend, and she has a life and all these different things. And it's very hard for a teenager to decide that. I mean, it's hard enough for teenagers to decide what they want to do, for the next few months or the next year. Imagine turning 16 and deciding what you want to do for the rest of your life. So you can see that in Sabrina in this book is done so well. You can see it in her thoughts, in her character. I think it's handled very well in this book. The Treasure Hunters Club, written by Tom Ryan. This was an arc read for me in October. This is quite fun. It's like a fun adventure. And it is about a treasure hunt, basically. And I do love treasure hunts in stories. It's set in a small town, a small coastal town, which I do love as well. There are some great characters in this book. A little bit quirky, this book, through all the characters and some scenarios. Not overly quirky. But one thing about the marketing of this book, it's marketed as being, good for people who like Benjamin Stevenson or Richard Osman. I don't see that in any of those two authors. What I do see, and what is in the marketing as well, is there is some kind of Goonies vibe. That movie, The Goonies? There's a vibe in that with some of the adventure in this story. But I think a lot of books these days, they are saying, good for fans of Richard Osman, or good for fans of this author and this author. And most of the time they mention that, it's a miss. I don't see that in a lot of the books at the moment coming out, especially some books I've read recently, but they do mention Richard Osman. It seems so many books out there keep saying, great for fans of Richard Osman. Not every book is great for a fan of Richard Osman, and I haven't seen one yet where it's a match to that. But anyway, back to the book. So in this book, we have a protagonist, I think, called Peter, and I say I think because he feels like he drives the story at the start, and then other characters drive the story after that. So I was confused in this book. Do we have one main protagonist or three? We have three main characters and POV chapters from all those characters. And in my view, Dandy, who's a high school girl, she's the protagonist in this book, the main character. My favourite character in this book anyway. But she drives most of the story, I think. But other characters drive the story as well, so it's very confusing who the main protagonist is. But the mystery is good. There are some great moments in this book, great adventures, great twists and turns, and I like this whole concept about this treasure hunt because it ties in kind of this secret club in this small town. There's clues, riddles, and maybe secret codes and maps and things lying around. So I like that whole concept in a book like this. What Have You Done, written by Shari Lapena. Now, the title of this book is quite apt because when I was reading this, I was thinking about the author, what have you done to write this book? Because this book wasn't really good at all. The start of this book is great. It's amazing. A great hook, a great first chapter, and after that it just falls to pieces. So to begin with, it feels quite YA. The writing style feels like it's young adult, not adult fiction. And in fact, the writing style just felt like it was written by AI or something. It didn't feel like the same writing style of Shari Lapena that I've read in different books. And one of the reasons I like this author is because her style reminds me of Mary Higgins Clark, well usually. But in this book, I don't see that link at all. And in this book, we have a couple of things going on. We have two teenagers who are trying to solve this mystery, trying to solve this murder mystery. And that makes me think YA as well, because you really only see teenagers trying to solve mysteries in YA books, don't you? Well, I do anyway. And then there's this paranormal aspect going on in this book as well, where we have this ghost or spirit or something of the first victim, and we have point of view chapters from that ghost or spirit. It just felt disjointed from the rest of the story, and I didn't sign up for a paranormal aspect in a book like this. It just felt quite strange to me. Just didn't have that link to the rest of the book. So for me, that wasn't well done either. So this book became just a bit of a mess. It's not all bad. It has elements I enjoy in stories. So it has a rural small town setting. It has a dark mystery, dark events and twists and turns. It has some good characters, but not great characters at all. But just the things about this YA feel to writing style, these amateur teen detectives, this paranormal aspect, this ghost and spirit, all that stuff just makes a mess of this book, I think. The Spy Coast, written by Tess Gerritsen. Now, Tess Gerritsen is one of my favourite authors, and I love her Rizzoli and Isles series. I want to read that series again from the first book right through. I think they're great books. I think this author is wonderful, especially in how she writes characters. One of the best things about this book are the characters. They all feel real, all of them. Whatever gender it is, whatever age, they all feel real. They all just match who they are in the story, age as well. In so many books where you have teenage characters or kid characters or whatever, they don't match the age they're meant to be in the story. So for me, there is a teenage character, kind of a main character who's a teenage girl. She feels like a teenage girl in this story. So that's all well done. And I like the concept. It is a spy type thriller. What we have is a protagonist and her friends. They're retired spies, and they live in a small town in Maine, a small rural town. And for some reason, somebody's out to get one of them and have to find out why. So they kind of shake off the cobwebs, brush off the dust, and they get back into the game in a way. And I like that in this book. I like the setup. I like the tension and suspense. I liked the main characters, how they handle things. Then we have this sheriff type character who's investigating the strange occurrences in this small town and also trying to find out the truth about who these people are. The people who are living in her community. She thinks they're hiding things. She's trying to find out what that is. I've got all that playing on in this story. So I enjoy the layers in the book. I enjoy the structure. I think it's so well done. It is the first book in a series, and the reason I read this is because I have the arc to the second book. So I had to make sure I read this first. But now I just can't wait to dive into that second book. I'm hoping there's more books and more books to come in this series because, like I said, Tess Gerritsen is one of my favourite authors. Middle of the Night, written by Riley Sager. This is one of the books I was looking forward to reading this year. Looking forward to it so much because I know Riley Sager can write a great book. This book isn't great. It is his first attempt at a male protagonist. Now, I'm not saying that character is bad. I'm just saying the writing style in this book, the way it's written and structured, I think is bad for all the characters in this story, especially in the present timeline. This book is past and present timeline split. The past timeline is better. And in the past timeline, we have the characters when they're teenagers. And for some reason, in that past timeline, all the teenagers feel brilliant characters. They all suit their ages, written very well. In the present timeline, the characters are quite dull and grey, and I don't know why. I mean, the adult characters, you'd think an adult writer could write adult characters better than kid characters, but in this book, it doesn't work out like that. But one of the letdowns in this story, it's a paranormal type mystery. And it is a cold case mystery, which I love, but the paranormal aspects didn't work for me. They weren't chilling, they weren't gripping, they just weren't detailed enough, they didn't drag me into the story. They're quite lame actually in the book. Then we have this secret institute, it's mysterious, things happen there nobody really knows about. And in the past timeline it's operational, in the present timeline it's not. So in the present timeline it's not a threat. In the past timeline, it kind of feels like it could be a threat, but it doesn't really feel threatening enough. So that wasn't used to the greatest extent it could have been, I think, in this story. There could have been more about that in this book. Make it chilling and gripping, have it still operating, have it more dangerous. I mean, just do something with it than having this building in the present timeline that's just in ruins maybe and not being used at all apart from being like a museum or a function centre. So for me, a big letdown in many aspects in this story. So the only thing I can say is that when I read this, after I finished, it was so disappointing because I was looking forward to the read so much. And maybe when you're looking forward to books so much, when you're kind of hyping them up in your own mind, that's worse, I think, when the books just aren't that good. So maybe it's a lesson. Maybe not hype books up so much in my own mind before I read them. Billy Summers by Stephen King. So this is Stephen King's attempt to go away from his strengths and write some sort of offbeat thriller with, quirky humour here and there, quirky characters. That should have been the headline. Doesn't really work for me in this book. This book is 3 different sections for me. So the first section I think was brilliant. The second section, not good at all. And the third section lifts it up a bit more, but doesn't save the day. So essentially we have Billy Summers, who's an assassin, but he wants to retire. But somebody offers him a last job. So he thinks, okay, I'll do this one last job. It's a lot of money. I'll do this one last job and then retire. So the first part of the book is the lead up. It's quite a long lead up to the event. And you think in a book like this, I mean, this book is certainly structured in a way that we have different main, I think, storylines, like 3 stories in one. And I think this could have been one of those stories, or maybe two, and take out one of them. But anyway, the first part of this book is leading up to that event, that assassination. And then Billy Summers is in hiding because the police are investigating the big manhunt, so he's in hiding. And he happens across a character called Ellis. I won't tell you how that happens, but in my view, the way that happens, the way they meet, is just ridiculous. It's one of the most ridiculous things I've seen in a book. And I can't fathom why Stephen King thought it was a good idea to write their meeting in that way, and then write Alice being so understanding and being accepting of Billy in a very short time, when you understand all the events that happen when they meet. I won't go into any more detail about that. If you want to read the book or you've read it, you understand. Then the last third of this book is Billy getting revenge on people who are trying to cheat him out of his money. And that part of the book reminded me of like a Charles Bronson movie, when this one character goes in all guns blazing, that sort of thing. So it wasn't really done that well. I think Charles Bronson movies do it better. So anyway, we have 3 different books in one. They're all joined by these loose little threads in the story. And apart from the first section, that was really good, I think, the rest of the book is just so-so. And I can see this book is trying to be very character-driven and maybe even trying to tell us that it's quite profound in changes in Billy. But I don't see that. I mean, at the start of this book, we have Billy telling us he's a bad person, not a good person. By the end of the book, he's not a good person really at all still. There's no change or growth for him. Is this book just meant to be about fate, bringing Alice and Billy together? I don't know, because in this book, Billy poo-poos the idea about fate, doesn't like it at all. So I don't know what this book is trying to do. What are they trying to show us about Billy in this story? I'm confused about that. The Dead of the Night, written by John Marsden. This is a YA thriller and it's book 2 in the Tomorrow series. It's an Australian book. And I like this book a lot. It's thrilling, it's gripping, it's got big moments. I can imagine teen readers devouring this book, this whole series, and loving it. And I wish this type of book was around when I was a teenager. We didn't have this type of book. And I could just imagine my teenage self reading this and loving it. So what we have in this book, we have a group of teenagers and they're in a situation that's just so awful that they're out of their depth the whole time. We have an invading army invading Australia, and these teens are the only people who are free in this town they grew up in. So they're in this situation where they're trying to be a resistance amongst themselves. They're trying to survive. They're trying to be teenagers still, I think, in this story, but they're growing up quickly because they realize they have to. If they don't grow up quickly and learn things and defend themselves and just come to terms with certain things, then they're not going to survive in this story. The thing about this book is the teenagers feel real. That's the great thing about this series. They feel so real. And the things they think, what they talk about, what they go through in this book feels real as well. We have themes about morals and ethics of warfare, and they think about that. In this book especially, it touches more on how they think about taking lives. Should they take lives to defend themselves, protect themselves? Is that okay? Should they embrace violence? Should they be a bit more peaceful? When they resist, should they make sure they don't harm people? Now, what should they do? How far should they go? So that's discussed in great depth, I think, in this book, in this series. In this book as well, we have a meeting with another group of people, and they're out there in the bush, in the wilderness. And I like that meeting, what it brings about in the story. And it suggests different things in the rest of the series as well with certain characters from that group. So I can't wait to see what happens in future books in this series. But like I said, I think this book is really great in the way it just represents these teenage characters and the way it represents strong female characters as well, because at the time this book was published, I don't know if we had other books for YA audiences with strong female characters doing things like this, being active, defending themselves, not sitting back and letting other people protect them. I don't know if other books had that same kind of character type as this book does. So I think there's some great choices in this book the author's made to make it gripping, relatable, to make those action scenes so engaging, to make the overall structure of this book so well done as well. I can't wait to read all the books in this series. The House We Grew Up In, written by Lisa Jewell. So this is not a mystery or a thriller. It's a dark family drama. It's quite dark actually. It has many themes running through it. We have past-present split storyline, and both of those are done so well. All the characters in both storylines are written so well. One of the darkest themes in this book is about the mental illness of hoarding and what that means for the character who is hoarding and their family. And we see the gradual build-up of that, the gradual intensification of that hoarding element in that person's personality, what that means. So I like the way that's handled. In my view, it feels very real. So I don't know what other people will think when they read this, if they have more experience, like more personal experience about somebody in their lives who is a hoarder or whatever. But it is hoarding to the extreme. Not just mild hoarding, not just somebody who's collecting a few things and keeping them. It's hoarding to the extreme. So the characters buying things they don't need and holding on to them, holding on to expired products, everything. That's what it is in this book. I think it's handled quite well though. So that's my personal view on this story. I love the characters in this story. I like what they bring to the book. I like the way they're written. I like their storylines, all of them. They're engaging, they're compelling. Every character in this book at some stage you'll think is unlikable, but they are all engaging and compelling, even when they're doing unlikable things, because you get right into their minds, into their psyche, and you start to understand why they're doing those things, and you start to empathize with them. Even when they're doing awful things to each other or themselves, you empathize with them. I found this quite a compelling and gripping read. It is sort of a quiet book, not too quiet though. The pace is quite good, and those dark elements kind of elevate it from like quiet book territory, but I found this just stunning in my view. Local Woman Missing, written by Mary Kubica. This is a book that has so many flaws, just so many big flaws. They're blatant flaws. I don't know how this book gets such rave reviews or high scores. I really don't. People just must ignore all the flaws in this story. This book ignores even basic forensic or police procedure, and it uses those mistakes, those flaws, to drive the plot forward. And I don't think they're just simple mistakes. You can't tell me that the author, the editors, whatever, just missed all the mistakes in this book. There are too many of them to have that excuse. There's so many flaws in this story. I don't want to go through them all in this book. When I recorded my long version of this, which I haven't put up on my channel yet, I have recorded a spoiler section when I go through all those flaws. I don't usually record a spoiler section, but for this book I had to, because I just couldn't talk about this book in great detail without going into those flaws. Anyway, all those flaws covered my view of this book overall. And I didn't want it to, because this book had a great concept. The first chapter of this book was amazing. That first chapter, if the rest of the book had been written in that same way and didn't have all the flaws in this book, this would have been a stunning 5-star read, hands down. The first chapter is brilliant, the rest of the book is just a mess. And by the end of the book, I was so tired of those flaws and different things going on in this story about deliberately having these stupid characters to drive plot forward, about deliberate mistakes in the plot to drive things forward. I was over it. I wanted the book to be over and done with. So that's a shame, because that first chapter was stunning. The Scattering, written by Kimberly McCreight. So it's book 2 of the Outliers trilogy, and it is a YA kind of sci-fi drama book. I like the overall concept of this trilogy. We have this teenage girl who finds out she's an outlier. She finds out she can understand, feel emotions of people, of strangers. And then we get the hint in this book, in this trilogy, that it leads to something else as well, to more powers, more understanding of certain things. And it's quite dangerous for these people called outliers, because other groups, maybe government or private groups, want to capture these teenagers and use them for their own means. So that's part of this story as well. So that concept could have been brilliant, because it is a chilling and gripping concept. But the way it's written just lets it down. And I think this book wasn't as good as book 1, and book 1 wasn't that great either. So in this book, I don't know, the pacing is just all over the place. We have certain moments where it goes slow where it shouldn't. We have the character being bogged down in certain situations for too long. We have different things going on in the book that don't make sense. Some things feel too easy. The character's meant to be in great danger sometimes. You don't really feel that. And then above all that, this main character in the story is meant to suffer from extreme anxiety. And extreme anxiety is how it's described. Even agoraphobia as well. We're told that even in book 1. But for some reason, all those things, the agoraphobia, the anxiety, only comes about in certain key moments where it needs to drive certain things in the book. It's not a part of the character's development or the character's personality or makeup, for the whole story. It's just forgotten about so often in the book. That's a big flaw in these first two books anyway. I have no idea what's in store for book 3. I have it from the library to read. I will read it just to complete the trilogy. But at this point, I'm not too hopeful it's going to be a great book. I may be wrong though. The Blue Hour, written by Paula Hawkins. So the second book from this author I read in October. Now before I talk about the book, I need to mention the blurb. There's something on the blurb that lies basically about what the book's about. And that irritates me because I don't like when blurbs lie. I know why they do that. They want to make the book sound more gripping or interesting in a certain aspect than it is. But on this blurb it suggests that one character who's on this island is in fear of her life basically. And she's just worried somebody's going to attack her or something. You get that impression from that blurb. That's not a part of the book at all. There is a character on an island, but she's not worried that somebody is going to come and attack her. So I don't know why that's on the blurb in the first place, but it is a lie and it's wrong. But other than that, this book is an okay read. I mean, it is well written. We've got a great structure. We have a good mystery. We have things about the art world, and I don't think it's very detailed about the art world. I don't think the author did much research about the art world anyway for this book, but it is a big aspect in this story. But the mystery is good. The characters as well. Some characters are good, some not that good. One character, Grace, who is a lady on the island, I think she's a great character actually. I think the way she's written, her secrets, her personality, it's all balanced quite well. And I like the way we learn different things as the book goes on. But the one big thing in this story that's lacking is atmosphere, and this island setting was screaming for atmosphere because it's a great setting. It's not a unique setting. I mean, it's an island that's cut off when the tide's high. We see that in different books here and there, so it's not unique, it's not new. It is handled okay in the story, but with better atmosphere, would have been a lot better in the story, a lot stronger. What I do like is the past-present timeline split gives us a viewpoint in different characters. One character in particular called Vanessa, who's an artist. In the past timeline, she's like a main character. In the present timeline, she's a memory. So I like that we have this split in timelines to give us different characters because we need that in this story to understand the mystery more. So structure-wise, it's good. Character-wise, we have some good characters. I like the ending of this book. I think a lot of people who read this may not like the ending because some readers like a nice neat ending, not an ending that's open-ended or has loose threads here and there, but I like the ending very much. The last book I read was Breaking the Dark, written by Lisa Jewell. So the second book by this author I read in October. This book is based on Jessica Jones, that Marvel comic character, and also there's a TV show based on the character as well. I read this thinking would have the same character that we know from the TV show or the comic books, wherever you've seen the character. I know the character from the TV show, not the comics. But in this book, we're not given that character at all. The Jessica Jones in this book feels totally different. And instead of feeling like a Marvel kind of novel, of a Marvel Universe novel, with that character and action and things going on, it's just almost like a very bland crime mystery. Not even a crime mystery, just a very bland mystery. That's so disappointing. And what I found out after reading this is that Lisa Jewell knew nothing about the Marvel Universe or Jessica Jones before being asked to write this book. She knew nothing. So I don't know if it's Marvel, the company, or the publishers. I don't know who's asking authors to write these books. But just please get authors who know the characters or the Marvel Universe. Get authors who know what they're writing about to write these books, because you're going to have people who are fans of the Marvel Universe or whatever universe you're basing books on. And if you've got authors who know nothing about that, who write books where the characters are totally different, where the feel's totally different, where nothing matches, what's the outcome of that? What are you trying to do? Is it a cash grab? Are you choosing authors like Lisa Jewell, who have a strong readership for their mysteries and thrillers these days, and you're trying to attract those readers for this book because you think they'll read it anyway because it's Lisa Jewell? Are you thinking the Marvel people who like Marvel will read it even though they don't know the author? They may not know the author anyway. What are you trying to do? What's the outcome? For me, it feels like a cash grab. It feels like they're trying to grab a bigger name to write this book when that bigger name knows nothing about what they're writing about. I don't like it. I think tap authors on the shoulder and find out first, what do you know about the character or the universe you're being asked to write in? If they don't know anything, then just say thank you and move on to the next author until you find somebody who knows. There you have all the books I read during October. If any of these books interest you, don't forget to subscribe and don't miss out on those longer version book reviews that come up on my channel. Because for every book in this video, there will be a longer version book review. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them, because I really do like to know what you think on these books. And also, don't forget to tell me your favourite books from October. I really want to know what readers out there like to read, because suggestions I think are great, because they open up my eyes anyway, possibly to new authors and new books I haven't read yet. On my channel, I review books of all different genres. Check out my channel and subscribe. On the screen now is a link to another video for a book I'm sure you'll enjoy.